Good morning, everyone. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I'm having a wonderful post day because it was my birthday yesterday. So, wow, I can't believe how many people have a birthday on November 17, Chris. Like I'm down to two hands now. People have birthdays on November 17th. So next year we're all gonna have to get together and celebrate. So anyways, thank you for joining us. This is our 20th edition of Thursday Live, and we're really excited to have a special guest, Chris Dekker, on board. So we will formally introduce him in a moment. I do want to introduce myself. I'm Deb Wiegers, the managing partner of the benefits division of Wiegers Financial and Benefits. That's quite a mouthful, but we're here to provide a level of consulting and advising to business communities regarding benefits and retirement programs. So that's who I am. This is our Thursday live session that we've been running since the start of COVID, actually. So I'm almost scared to start adding this number because now we've hit 20. And my guess is that we're going to have to slow things down maybe once we hit 50, because you're all going to be tired of me anyway. But anyways, theme of the month, lest we forget. So we thought it was important to really, I think, pay tribute to all the people that have been there to help support us and given us our way of life in Canada. And we said, rather than a day, we want to give it a month. So we were really proud to say that we're here in Canada. We've been kept safe and healthy, even through COVID times. We can't be in a better space, in my opinion. So with that, I want to introduce our guest speaker today. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well, Deb. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure. We've been talking about this for a while, so we made it happen. And I think there's a lot of things that we can share with our audience regarding, the landscape of export and some of the collaboration that we have as a community and the successes that we're going to have in our province and certainly in Canada. So I was like, wow, looking at your resume, and it's like, holy wow. I feel like, thank you for coming to share with us today. He's like, so first, we know Chris Dekker is the president and CEO of Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership, STEP, and has been since 2015. And I am proud to say that we are a member. And I was actually going to go find out how long we've been a member, but I know we've been a member for a very long time. There's a trick question. Do you know?
Actually, I don't, but it'll take me one click of our customer relations management system to find out.
There we go. All right. So I can say that, you know what, we've had some really good success. More about my clients, because a lot of my clients are members of STEP. And I know that they've spoke on numerous occasions about the support they've received from STEP and the things that they've been able to achieve through some of the supports that you've offered. So thank you for that. He is, Chris, you are Saskatchewan born?
I am North Battleford, Saskatchewan, Canada.
There you go. So University of Saskatchewan, proud to say that I've got 4 kids, almost all the way out of the University of Saskatchewan. And glad to see that when you went to Edmonton, you came back. Absolutely. So we need more of that. We talked about that at SIPE last night, how we're really excited to have young entrepreneurs leave the university and stay in Saskatchewan rather than go to Alberta or other provinces and then come back. So always nice to get them back, but nice to have them stay here and grow their careers.
Absolutely. You know this as well as I. In the 1980s, your graduating gift was luggage, because typically you had to go out of province to get a job. And that has changed considerably since then. And glad to see a whole new class and of graduates staying in Saskatchewan. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And we're in a really, really sweet spot, I think, to really gain some momentum and successes as a province. So I got bags for my graduation, but as far as I got was Saskatoon. I'm here.
Saskatoon is lucky to have you.
Coming from a small town, Tisdale, so it's all good. You've done a lot of work in the political space. Wow. So you were in a lot of executive positions. You were chief of staff to the leader of the opposition. 1996, appointed to the position of manager of public and intergovernmental affairs and special projects of the city of Saskatoon. That sounds like quite the role. Then you went back to the government, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Investment Attraction for Enterprise Saskatchewan, and appointed as CEO in 2010. So before joining STEP, Chris served as an Associate Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Economy, accredited public relations practitioner, and two-time winner. This is pretty awesome, of the prestigious Premier's Award for Excellence in the Public Service. So thank you for all what you've done for our province and our community.
Oh, thank you, Deb, for the introduction. And a quick shout out to you and Cliff and the Wiegers family and the entire staff at Wiegers Financial and Benefits for organizing these discussions. It's important to have frank and open discussions on critical issues such as this. So congratulations. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, and thank you for that, because I think it was really important. When we started these sessions, we really were focused on the benefit side of things, but then soon to realize as a community member, as a business in Saskatoon or in Saskatchewan, and part to wanting to make the best that we could, we need to come together as a community and collaborate. So in turn, that's why we start to move past our borders and start to look at some of the partners that we have, because that becomes really important in terms of just what we're going to see, because things will be very interesting, are very interesting actually right now in our time. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to just kind of give it back to you. Before I start with my first question, I do want to remind the audience that this session is taped. It is going to be on our Facebook and our website, and do share this out to others that you feel will have value in listening to what we are going to talk about today. So my first question is, I know a little bit about STEP, obviously haven't been a member of STEP, but I would like to have you share with the audience just really actually what STEP is about, and really back to the beginnings of STEP, how it came to be.
Sure. STEP is an independent, not-for-profit agency that is contracted by our partners. The partners in our name is the provincial government, to provide export programs and services to the export industry. We have a team of trade professionals that provide valuable services and programs and information on markets, regulatory requirements, transportation, and logistics, in addition to a full suite of programs that are really designed to reduce the unique risks of doing business on the international marketplace. STEP was launched back in 1996. Following extensive consultations with the private sector. And because the exports are so important to the economy, they identified the need for a truly independent trade and export development organization that was led by the export industry. So if you did the math, yes, this is our 25th anniversary. You'll see the logo up in the top corner. So it was back in 1996 when well, for instance, eBay started their online auction service, and Dolly the sheep was the first mammal that was to be successfully cloned. Braveheart won the Oscar, and everybody was dancing to the Macarena back in 1996 when we opened the doors. And while much has changed since 1996, what hasn't changed is this agency's singular focus on the exporter. Since its inception, we've served to be a catalyst to generate leads and sales, discover new markets, solve labeling issues, resolve logistics problems, mentor new exporters. And indeed, in the 25 years since we have started, STEP has organized 1,355 trade missions to over 78 countries around the world. So that kind of success is really rooted in the STEP model, which allows us to be agile, to react quickly to changing market dynamics, and to move at the speed of business.
That's perfect. And you know what? I hear a lot about the trade missions. We got a lot of good friends and clients that have been part to those trade missions, and they've talked about the wonderful experience and the opportunities that they have in being able to do that. So I often wonder what was happening and how were they able to grow their businesses pre-1996, because what you provide for them on a level of services and support, it wasn't even an nth of that back in the day, I'm assuming, right?
That's correct. Trade promotion services in other jurisdictions are typically delivered through the government, either the provincial government or a likely aligned entity. What is different with STEP is that we are truly independent. We maintain a very close and successful relationship with provincial government, and most notably Trade and Export Development and the Ministry of Agriculture and other agencies and ministries that are aligned and are involved in international engagement. But because we are run by exporters for exporters, our programs and services are very much dedicated and tailored towards their success on the international marketplace. And again, we're able to move very quickly and at the speed of business, which makes a world of difference.
Oh, hugely, hugely, especially in today's time, especially.
Yes.
So I think about Trevor Thiessen. We got the opportunity of listening to his story when he was part of the NSBA. And certainly he says the success of his business hinged on the ability to be able to get to that level of reaching out and touching to opportunities that were gaining him successes going forward. So thank you for that. I think that's awesome. And just so you know, I don't know if we can see that because I can't see myself on the screen because my IT guy, he made me put a blanket on it.
I'm just looking for my copy. I've got it around here somewhere.
You see it?
Absolutely.
I tell you what, this is one of the best reads ever. I love it because you know what? What you're able to do, number one, you share such excellent stories, you profile businesses that are having successes, and you provide the resources to get those. So it's amazing. It's an easy read, but it gets down to the knitting of having the resources right at your fingertips. So I highly recommend as a member, you do pick this book up. Well, it is online, I guess, and read it as well. So, and yes, congratulations on your 25 years. That's awesome. So we were talking, Chris and I, and we said, you know, people are going to ask, like, well, what do we have in common? Like, what are those things that, why would you want me on your session, Debbie? So we thought we wanted to talk about connections. We wanted to talk about connections. And we said, like, what is that connection between what you do and what we do? And why would we want to be talking today? So I'm going to throw this out to you first, and I might comment in terms of what I see from my perspective.
Fantastic. It's a great and an important question. And as you noted, it's the genesis of this week's Thursday live session. The fact of the matter is that financial and benefit services and exports are inextricably intertwined. Let me explain. Saskatchewan's entire economy relies on exports. In fact, we're one of the most export-dependent provinces in one of the most export-dependent countries in the world. And the reason for that is relatively simple. Saskatchewan has a small population. There's 1.1 million of us. And to be sure, that's growing. But that means we have a very small domestic market. So we must sell the vast array of products we produce, mine, and manufacture to larger markets around the world. Indeed, 70% of what we produce is exported. Now, Export Development Canada, the major federal agency designed and organized to promote exports and exporters, notes that 1 in 5 jobs in Canada depends on exports. In Saskatchewan, we estimate that to be more like 1 in 3 jobs. So that means our principal industries, farming, mining, forestry, manufacturing, all rely on healthy export sales. And all of their supply chain and services rely on healthy export sales. And that certainly includes financial and benefit services.
Yeah. And, you know, we've got many, many clients and such a vast array of them. And some are very successful just within the community and the work that they do and the business that they have. But many of them rely on export. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit about this as we go further on. But, you know, we talk about, you know, in today's space, I mean, always when I was in the benefit space, it was like, what can we do for our clients to make sure that they have a good, sound base of a team? You've kept them happy, you've taken care of them, because happy people are very productive people. And so what do we need to do to bring to the table those opportunities that they can use to make sure they attract the right talent and keep the right talent? And as the challenges start to progress, and COVID has created opportunities, but certainly challenges for some people, this is even a more important conversation now than ever, because I just did a presentation a few weeks ago to the Pension Benefits Institute, and it was a swing in terms of how I positioned it, because it used to be, you know, first of all, we had to convince people why they should have benefits. So that was like the first hurdle. Now we assume that most people understand why they need to have benefits, but now the more critical question is it about having good benefits, or is it about having great benefits? And when I say benefits, it's a very broad subject. It's not just about your health and dental. It's about your retirement programs. It's about the customizing of programs, because we've got a millennial generation coming into the working population. And what are they looking for? And what do the traditional people need to be thinking about as well? So It's created a lot of opportunities. I wouldn't even say challenges. I'm actually really excited to be working more and more with my clients on this level because it allows us to grow and bring new ideas and new ways of doing business or thinking about business to the table. So there you go. And I know a lot. I know because I look at the magazine and I read it. When you put your directors together, many of my clients are members, and so I do see this collaboration. So.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're asked by a number of different industry associations and business agencies to come and talk about exports because of that inextricable link between exports, the economy, and their business and their future.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's probably been a lot of moments that you've been like, high five, this is awesome, we've done a great job, team. If I was to say, provide me maybe two, what you feel that has been one of your best, proudest moments as a STEP organization.
Wow, that's a great question and a difficult one to answer. You know, we like to think about our successes as being those of our members, the exporting industry, because we are a membership-based organization. In fact, we have 400 members in nearly every industry from every corner of the province. We have everything from mom and pop shops that are working out of their basements or their garage to the multinational companies, international conglomerates like Cameco and Viterra and Nutrien. And so when they succeed, we succeed. It's based on a premise that we understand completely. We have a keen understanding that STEP does not create exports. Government does not create exports, businesses do. So when they're successful, again, we're successful. So when a new company makes their first sale in market, when Three Farmers makes their first sale in the United States, we celebrate. When Black Fox Distillery wins an international award for the best gin in the world, we celebrate. It really is about helping connecting businesses to the world. And our proudest moments are not necessarily ours, they're the members. But what we have done to foster and facilitate that makes us very proud.
Yes, and proud to say that Black Fox Distillery is a client of mine, and I have tried their gin out, and it is very good.
It's some of the best gin, it is the best gin in the world. And just very recently, we facilitated a mission for them into London, where they were able to promote and highlight their product at a Rolls-Royce conference in London. So our products are well respected around the world.
Yes. And, you know, I look at that industry, no different than many industries, I'm sure, how, you know, maybe at some point they become oversaturated, not even saturated, oversaturated. So how you can help those businesses maneuver through that and come out of that with that one thing that they can claim as their own. And I always say, you know, Hanif Hamani from Express Employment, that's the one thing that he always talks about. He said, what's that one thing that you own? Because that's the thing you need to be proud of. So when you can do that for your members and they can come out and say, I own this, we're all successful in Saskatchewan.
Absolutely. We all know about market differentiation. And when you have a product, how is that going to make an impact in the markets that you serve? What are the best markets? How do you get that product to market? What are the issues with respect to regulation and labeling and legal requirements and cultural differences? All of these are risks that exporters face that are unique to exporters rather than just, you know, an entrepreneur in province doing business domestically. And that's what STEP helps to do, is reduce that risk. Yeah.
So I was reading, because I did a little bit of reading, but I am the first to say that I'm certainly not as knowledgeable in this space as, of course, of you. But one of the things that I thought was quite cool is when I read a stat and they said that, I'll even just read it as it says. So Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership Annual State of Trade Report released today found that the total value Saskatchewan exports to the world reached 30.4 billion in 2020, which was marking a 2.5% increase overall from 2019. So Saskatchewan, they said, was the only province in Canada to record an increase in exports for the year. That's amazing. So what's your secret sauce?
Well, it's important to put that year in context, and it's about COVID-19, right? Certainly the COVID-19 pandemic has been one of the greatest challenges and the most dramatic economic downturn of our time. And we continue to deal with the uncertainty and the unpredictable times. And as your viewers would have presumed, STEP is heavily involved in international engagement. The nature of export promotion and the services we provide includes, again, organizing between 40 and 45 international missions every year. So when COVID hit, markets around the world closed their borders. They restricted travel and all but eliminated large public gatherings, which are trade shows in essence. So that had the effect of canceling our trade missions last year. So we had to pivot very quickly, as a lot of businesses had to do during COVID-19. And to help with those realities, STEP shifted all of our international efforts to expand the use of virtual trade opportunities for the Saskatchewan export industry. So last year we conducted 64 virtual trade missions, 17 virtual trade shows, and 7 virtual trade conferences. In addition to those trade missions, we launched the Sask Trade Showcase, which is an online virtual trade platform, which is a direct portal for international buyers and to connect them to provincial exporters. So all of that in the middle of COVID-19 helped and facilitate export deals and export, delivering export sales. That helped certainly, but to tell you the truth, that $30 billion that we achieved in 2020, as you noted, the only province that had an increase that year when Canada's total exports dropped by 11.8%, was because of something that is pretty simple and would be appreciated by all of those that are viewing this. And it's simple. Our key markets are fully aware, and we're aware that Saskatchewan's robust agricultural industry produces high quality products at incredible volume. So the need to feed the world did not pause for pandemic. So our export highlights were largely in food and food ingredients, 50% increases in wheat, 32% increases in durum, 47% increases in canola seed, et cetera, et cetera. Even lumber was up substantially. We had lumber exports increased by 29%, and OSB, oriented strand board plywood, was up by 97%. And that continues into this fiscal year as well. Exports are up by 20%. Now, we have some issues moving forward. I mean, we all know that we had difficulties with this year's harvest, but that bode well. So some industries were particularly hurt by COVID-19 in terms of exports, but certainly we fared very well.
Yes, and you forgot lentils. Lentils were up 97. And I love lentils. I just don't know how to cook them.
Right? Exactly.
But I know my father's a farmer, and he, back in the early days, he was one of the forward-thinking farmers, and he went right into lentils and peas and had great successes. And I do remember the days of the wheat, because I do remember going through the crops. And the first question I had to ask myself, of course, with the changing and shifting how we grow, because I knew I wasn't shrinking or growing any taller rather, but the wheat was shrinking. So I just realized how much potential we have as an ag industry for sure, and how it spins out into the food side of things, right?
So that speaks to Saskatchewan producers' innovation and agility. I mean, 20 some years ago, we grew very little in the way of lentils and peas and chickpeas and whatnot. But the markets found that we were able to not only grow them, but grow them successfully and in great volumes and in great quality, and then be able to deliver them to the world efficiently and expeditiously. So now it's a key market and a key product for us, and it speaks to our diversification and innovation.
Hugely. So if you were to pick a couple, because there's many, but if you had to pick a couple, what does the world want most from Saskatchewan?
Well, that's a great question as well. Look, the world needs what Saskatchewan produces, not necessarily wants. It's an important distinction. They may want big screen TVs, but they need what we have to offer. We like to call it the 3 F's: food, fuel, and fertilizer. And recently there's a 4th F, as we just talked about, forest products, right? The world is growing and growing exponentially. The population of the world is growing exponentially, and they need what we have. So you have potash and oil and grains and oil seeds. that are particularly amongst our highest in the top 25 exports around the world. But we're also adding value. It's important to note that these commodities are important and are principal to the economy, but the overarching economic development strategy of the province was to add value to those products and then ship them abroad. So instead of canola seed, we're crushing it locally and now selling canola oil. Instead of dried peas, now we can crush them here and process them here and provide pea flour and pea proteins and pea isolates. It's critical and has been a great boon to foreign direct investment and to jobs in Saskatchewan. And there's so much more to us than those products as well. We sell, for instance, and ship around the world some of the highest quality buses and emergency vehicles through Crestline, right here in Saskatoon. We also sell musical instruments. Dingwall basses, again, right out of here in Saskatoon, ships around the world, including to Japan, where they're considered some of the best instruments in the world. They have a 5-string bass that when played has been described as the voice of God, right? So we're much more than commodities, and it's a wonderful array and diversified products that we're selling to the world.
And we forget, not that I'm dating myself, but back in the days when we used to make cold calls, I called on Sheldon Dingwall, and that was when he had a small little shop on Broadway. And I think it was called Head. And it was, they sold instruments, and then he was working on crafting the guitar handle, right? And it's amazing when I watch how he's grown through the years, and he will be the first to tell the viewers that if it wasn't for Step, he wouldn't be where he was. So it's just really neat to see those stories and flourish. Same with Crestline, a client, and I see the beginning days and how they've launched and brought that product to the entire world. So it's pretty cool to see that. So I'm going to actually just because I have to, because I know you as a friend and a colleague as well, because I don't know for the viewers out there, but this guy, Chris, does know how to play an instrument or two.
We're getting off topic, Deb.
Guitar, got to do it. And he can even sing. So we've been known to probably have a few get-togethers and do our best to be rock stars.
All business meetings, all of them, Deb.
So anyways, okay, let's talk COVID. COVID's been an interesting journey. I don't want to say it's been all bad. I think, and I would like to believe there's been more good than bad out of it. So I think that, I think about, export and what happened in your space. What were the most challenging moments when COVID hit? I mean, bring that on.
Well, sure. We touched on it earlier. It was the closure of the borders, restricting travel, closure of the opportunity to get to trade missions and trade shows, which is a very effective and efficient manner by which we can connect businesses to the most amount of buyers in any one shop. So for instance, we would go to Agritechnica in Hanover, Germany, which is the largest agricultural implement manufacturing show in the world. So the world would come to that show. So we only need to go to one show to cover almost all of Europe and certainly parts of Eastern Asia. So it was a very effective and efficient way to connect our sellers to buyers around the world. So when those slowed down and indeed shut down completely, we had to switch to those virtual trade missions in order to be still active on the international stage. Now it's slowly starting to lift. And so we are getting back into international missions in person, which our members are very much appreciated, but it's slow and there's going to be lingering effects. I would also note, Deb, that our businesses and our exporters here in Saskatchewan also pivoted very quickly and became very innovative, as they have been for decades. And I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, the agencies like Vito Intervac, who are developing some incredible technologies in the field of vaccines, has been doing great work. Our distilleries very quickly retooled to develop hand sanitizer when hand sanitizer was very, very rare and needed to be put into the hands of businesses and families around the province. Then there's some other very unique stories that I'd love to tell you about. Ground Effects Environmental Services, for instance, developed an automated chemical-free decontamination unit that eliminates the coronavirus and other bacteria on all surfaces in an enclosed space within an hour, using some really unique ozone technology. Dryer manufacturing. produced a workplace screening portal. It's a mobile screening and preparation facility where employees can be screened for illness as they enter and exit a workplace. And it goes all the way down to companies like Bridgeview Manufacturing, who developed a touchless golf ball remover that allows a golfer to lift a tab with their putter from the ball to retrieve the ball from the cup. And that, of course, just helps with health precautions around a golf course. So, with every issue becomes an opportunity. And certainly Saskatchewan businesses took full advantage.
Yes. And you're right. And I was going to ask, what was some good success stories, but you've shared many of them. And there's, and to your point, there's many more. And I think that's, even we as of our business, we were an essential service, but we were certainly impacted. And we didn't have any idea what that would look like, because when our clients were in shutdown, we didn't know when they were coming back, because we all thought 6 weeks and that's it, we're back to work and it's all good, but that didn't happen. We know that. And we still see that some are actually, certainly challenged with what's happening as it results to COVID. So, I always say, to everybody in Saskatoon and Saskatchewan, continue to support those local community businesses, because they in part will be able to reach out to the export world. And if we can be successful on both sides, life is grand. So for us, we're very, very, very happy to see that many of our businesses, many in the export and trade level, they're having great success right now. So it's really exciting to see their times of the growth that we've had in some of the industries that you speak to. The growth they've had in employees and numbers and the opportunities have been something else. Now, the challenge is probably with the supply and demand with some of these businesses, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it is. I mean, there's a ton of challenges as a result of COVID, and a ton of challenges that are normal to business and to the export industry in particular. For the exporters, again, I would mention that we need to get back on the international stage. And virtual trade missions and virtual trade opportunities have been great, but we're finding that the outcomes, trade deals, and the value of those trade deals are certainly less than they would be from the virtual opportunities that we're providing. There's a number of reasons for it. One is skin in the game. The other one is that we've actually done some research on this, Deb, and there's mirror neurons that fire when you're in person, and that creates trust, and it creates an opportunity to do better business. So we need to get back onto the international stage, and we're going to be doing that for our members. We like to think that at one time we were helping flatten the curve. Now we're helping exporters to get ahead of the curve and get back onto the international stage and start producing exports for themselves and for the province.
Yes, and absolutely. We talk about common links, the question we started, and there's always, for every time we talk about another conversation, because I look at us in our space, I'm with you. And I saw you guys had and it was virtual, but you had a virtual session on virtual fatigue. And to your point, I mean, this is great. It's created opportunities. There's no doubt. I can speak to my clients that are in Ottawa and Vancouver across, but there is still something to be said for being in person. And some people thrive on that. It's just, this is what gives them energy to be able to be in front of each other. There's so much more that you can read from a situation. The trust that you develop is that much stronger when you are in person. So I'm okay with a hybrid as we go forward, because that's what it's going to be. And there's going to be reasons why we'd want it. It's creating positive environment. But I still don't want people to be feeling that we shouldn't need to get together in person, because I think we need that as human beings, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We had, as you pointed out, an excellent webinar yesterday with Katrina German, local digital and online guru, about how to fight virtual fatigue, I think, which we are all facing. And certainly the COVID-19 pandemic and the switch to virtual opportunities is transformational. This is going to continue on for a long time. And certainly we will continue to find them as valuable to export promotion, particularly in export markets that are difficult to get to, costly to get to, or might still be in lockdown. So the virtual trade shows, virtual trade conferences will continue. So we'll do a bit of a parallel approach. As we get back on stage and in-person travel, you need to do that safely and carefully. But virtual trade and virtual opportunities are here to stay.
Yes. And I think now because some of the policies are and the restrictions on traveling, in terms of isolation, because we talked about that when we chatted a while back and it's okay to say, yeah, I can go down and meet these partners. But if you have to isolate going in and isolate going out, I mean, people do have lives beyond that. And we can't put that much time aside, right? So now that they're loosening up a little bit on that, we've got the vaccinations going into play, and we're all starting to agree on the same things. I think that was the challenge, is that every space in the world had a different way of handling COVID, which made it very difficult, frustrating, I'm sure. I don't think you'd want to see one of your members go down to do a presentation, not be able to get back home.
Well,
Right?
that's exactly it. I mean, before vaccination, you're quite right. There was a need to isolate for 14 days when you were in market, and then 14 days when you came back. And a month of time for any business or business person is not going to be conducive to international travel. So the vaccination really made a big difference as it relates to that. It's going to be interesting going forward. I think there's going to be an announcement shortly that going into the United States, they'll do away with the test. They'll be going to rapid antigen tests. Again, we're slowly moving to market reopening, but again, we need to be careful. You don't want to bring COVID back. You don't want to be stuck in market with COVID. So when we do this, we'll be doing it very carefully, and to markets that we do what we call a COVID-19 sit rep. So if we're going internationally, our market intelligence people and our trade specialists will be doing specific reports on those markets, finding out what the COVID case rate is, what is the vaccination rate, what are they doing to manage the pandemic, what are the restrictions, what are the facilities and the hotels that we'll be attending to, what are they doing, and is it up to international standards? Everybody will be double vaxxed. We'll make sure that they have the travel insurance in place, not only for their flights and their hotels, but for medical insurance. So you do this, you do it carefully, and you do it strategically.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning that, because that's, I think, that the thing that you guys have been able to do in a huge way through these COVID times, because a lot of people don't know. And the last thing you want to do is gamble these things. And I mean, not that it was related to export, that I do recall there was a conversation about, a couple that wanted to go down and travel, and they got as far into the States before they needed to get on the plane to go to their hot destination, and found out that they had the wrong test done. And then they got jammed. They had to, it was either you go home and get the right stuff in place and then come back, or you stay in the States and you get in line and get it done. So that's the stuff we want to avoid, especially when you're on a mission to do business, right? That's
risky stuff. Not so much for the snowbirds, but for business. You've got to know what you're facing when you get into a major market like the United States. In fact, we've developed a complete protocol and outline of what it takes to travel into the United States, and we've provided that to members. Now, it gets updated on a weekly basis because of the changing dynamics of the management of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's a valuable resource to exporters.
Hugely. So let's slip a little bit into the HR space, because again, I think a common link in a conversation, because certainly I don't think, again, go back to COVID, we didn't even expect COVID to be where we're at right now, and vaccinations where we're at right now. And then comes this war on talent, shortage of labor, and how one thing just moved to another and it snowballed, and you just barely get through one muddle and then you're into the next. So I would think that with the markets that you work with and the successes they have, there's got to be, to some degree, some challenges that they would have on that very specific shortage of skilled labor. Because again, a stat would tell us, and thank you to Hanif, that, there's 60% more jobs that are out there that we're looking to fill, but many, many less people there to fill them. So how are you guys seeing that in your space?
So being a trade promotion agency, Deb, we don't deal directly with labor issues, but we certainly hear about them. We survey Saskatchewan exporters yearly, and we meet with them on a regular basis, and we ask them about barriers to doing business around the world. They typically indicate issues that are more export oriented, like market access, protectionism, tariffs, and export infrastructure. But the two non-export sort of issues we hear quite often is access to capital and access to labor. So to be sure, these issues and exports are related in that you need access to capital and you need access to labor, both to increase exports. I can give you one specific example that directly relates to exports. Again, it's important to put this into context. Being a landlocked province that Saskatchewan is, we rely on road, rail, and pipeline infrastructure to get the amazing array and volume of products to market. There's a current shortage of long-haul truck drivers in Canada. Estimates indicate that shortages are around 18,000. Now that's substantive. And that has significant impact on our ability to deliver across the country to our huge markets in the US and to Tidewater. So that adds to the whole suite of issues with respect to exports, and really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and we see it. We've got many clients that are in the trucking business. And you have to understand too, I mean, couple that with the fact that there's an aging population in that space. And so now COVID is, certainly brought about conversations like, you know what, life's too short. I'm going to retire. And now we're looking to the younger generation to say, hey, do you want to step up to the plate and now travel around and maybe not see your family for a week or two, right? And that's always been a challenge pre-COVID. Now COVID's add another level to that. So it'll be interesting to see, because I know I've got clients in the space that they could be much more successful. The barrier is the people to get them to those spaces that do give them those opportunities.
Yeah, and whatever we need to do, either at the private sector level or industry level or at the federal level to push this file along will be critically important moving forward. Hugely,
hugely. No, I agree. So one of the things that you had predicted is that that the positive export growth to carry into the new year. You said that there continues to be ongoing uncertainties in the world markets, forecasting Saskatchewan exports to grow between 3% and 5% in 2021. So given the level playing field, you mentioned that exports can compete with anyone in the international stage. So let's just kind of look forward to 2022. Let's just talk about maybe on the horizon, you've seen some successes as we moved into the 2021 rather. Now we're going to 2022. What do you see on the horizon? I mean, it's probably a lot of ground. There's probably a lot of, challenges or barriers. So maybe let's start with the, the not so good news, and then let's move to the positive.
Predictions. Yogi Berra said it's tough to make predictions.
I got my pen and I'm writing it down. Chris said.
Well, Yogi Berra said that it's tough to make predictions, particularly about the future. And to be sure, there are a lot of headwinds that will be a challenge for the export industry. Ongoing issues with COVID-19 are first in mind, and the uncertainty for business that creates. Vaccination rates are increasing and markets are starting to open up and travel restrictions are starting to lift, but there are effects that may linger for months and perhaps years. And of course, you never know when the next variant or the next wave may occur. We also have significant issues with international transportation and export infrastructure. As we noted about the shortage of long-haul truck drivers, there's an acute shortage of shipping containers as a result of supply and demand anomalies, again, related to COVID-19. Our international ports are beyond capacity. Shipping costs have doubled and in some cases tripled. Of course, we have that unbelievable disaster, weather-related disaster in British Columbia that has all but shut off our access to the port of Vancouver, that Tidewater and our Asian markets that are going to have immediate impacts on exports, not only in 21, but in also 2022. And then finally, we have geopolitical challenges that can impact exports. Relations with China are strained, and there's growing protectionism and growing protection sentiments in some of our key markets, most notably the United States and in the European Union and in some of the key markets around the world. So again, there are some significant headwinds that we're going to be facing in the years ahead.
Yes. And you know what, again, connecting on what we do and what makes us the same or different. That's to your point. People say, can you tell me what's happening going forward, Deb, on the benefit side of things? And I said, wow. I said, we used to be able to have some sense of what was going on based on the historical. And the historical's been all over the map. That we don't know from one day to another. When we were doing these sessions, literally when you said every week there was a different conversation. That's exactly what was happening. Every week we'd say, you know what, here's what I'm going to tell you today, but next week it could be different. And so for us to be able to predict what we see the landscape of benefits being going forward, there's very, very swift movement. The landscape is growing in a way that I've never seen it in the many years I've been in this business. So I can agree with you wholeheartedly on that level. So what about the positives? What are you seeing on the good stuff?
Well, there is, a great opportunity. There are tailwinds as well as headwinds, and they are significant, particularly for Saskatchewan. Look, there's 7 to 8 billion of us on this earth, and it's growing. And in some cases, it's growing exponentially. Everybody has their favorite China statistic. Mine is this: China is growing their middle class by the same population of Canada, some 38 million, into the middle class every year. And they're going to, again, need things. They're going to want things. And again, Saskatchewan has a lot of what that growing population is going to need. Some estimates put that we're going to need 70% more food by 2050. 70% by 2050. Now, a lot of that is going to come from efficiency improving technologies and from jurisdictions like Saskatchewan, which we do very well. We also have the Canadian brand working for us. The Canadian brand in most markets, particularly as it relates to agricultural commodities, food and food ingredients, means high quality, safe product, competitive prices, and efficient delivery. So you combine those two and new opportunities, including opportunities in plant proteins. I think the future bodes very well for Saskatchewan. Abraham Lincoln, to close with a quote, I started with Yogi Berra. Let's close with Abraham Lincoln said that the most reliable way to predict the future is to create it. And I think we can do that in Saskatchewan.
Yes, I think I always say that Saskatchewan, when I talk to, business and opportunities, and I always say we're cut from a different cloth. Not that we're all farm kids, but we've got that farm kid mentality where, at the end of the day, you got to buckle down, you got to do what you got to do. And what I really like, especially when I see, and really, kind of a hats off to the millennial generation, is that they're not scared to be forward thinking, to have that vision to say, where are we today? And where do we want to see ourselves going? And I appreciate the fact that they've got the angst to want to get there, and they want to see the success of the businesses that we work for, because it's success for Saskatchewan in general, right?
Our entire manufacturing industry in agricultural implements was built on that innovation spirit. It was recognizing a need, identifying a problem, providing a local solution, manufacturing that for local and domestic markets, and then shipping and upscaling and then shipping around the world. So your Schultes, your Borgols, your Degelmans, your Dutch Industries, all of these companies had that spirit, that knowledge, that go-to entrepreneurism. They faced that risk, overcame that risk, and said, we can do this around the world. And so in addition to our food and food ingredients and commodities having that Canadian brand, so does our dry land, large implement manufacturing equipment around the world. It's a great story that we should be telling more.
Oh, hugely. And again, part of the research when I was doing this presentation, and again, accolades. And it's not because I have 4 millennials. It's just, I mean, we're in a company where we're growing, and good news is we're adding much younger blood because we all want to retire someday. So, but I do have to say to the millennial generation, one thing, especially the Gen Zs, they actually were probably the best to make it through the COVID. They were the most resilient. They knew how to pivot quickly, and they were okay with it. That change, it was rapid. It was okay. They were okay with it. Whereas we do know that some people are very resistant to change. So now here comes this new space. And if you don't look at that to succeed as a business, you're going to have challenges, right?
The new generation of business people, of entrepreneurs, of engineers, doctors and lawyers coming from that Gen Z population bodes well. I mean, we want to talk about what is going to be a tailwind for business and for exports. I would certainly put that high above all of the other characteristics moving forward.
Yes, hugely. And, you know, again, looking at some of the events and supports that are in this province, going back to our event last night that we attended with SIPE, Greg Ewell presented and Jarrett Bode. And I'll tell you, fantastic stories, and both echoing that they were so excited to see a room full of about 30 young entrepreneurs that didn't have to leave the province, because they did. They both left and they went to Alberta and beyond, and to come back and get roots in Saskatchewan. They're happy to be here and to continue to grow their businesses, and they're very both successful. But more importantly, to be looking in that room to see these young entrepreneurs that saying we can do what we need to do right here in Saskatchewan. So it was pretty cool.
Step just recently put a new category of membership called PreMarket, because we wanted to help those business people, those entrepreneurs who had an idea or had a product and haven't yet developed their program or market entry strategy for exports. Those are going to be the exporters of the future. So all of these new entrepreneurs, all these new business people who might be in a cultivator or a business incubator who have an idea, they're likely going to want to sell it outside of Saskatchewan, again, because of our small domestic market. So they need to know about exports and the export community and the export services that are open to them to help them reduce that risk on the international stage. And like you, it's an absolute wonderful opportunity to talk to those entrepreneurs and their skill set and their ability to face those risks and succeed on not only local markets, but around the world. It's a wonderfully uplifting opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to throw it out to the audience. I've been learning a lot as we're talking. I do have a question or conversation, but I do want to certainly let the audience know if there was any questions that you have, you're more than welcome to send them to us right now. We can answer to them, or you can email me at deb.wiegers@wiegers.ca, and I'll be sure to let Chris know if there's some questions that come our way. So please do bring them on if you have any. I wanted to touch on succession. Because I don't, the generations coming in, they're in a good space. There's great opportunities. They're anxious to learn and grow. But I do want to give accolades to where the wisdom, I'm just going to call it wisdom and knowledge is, because this is the space that we're seeing again in our world. Not just on a personal level, but in business, is succession of these great opportunities that for Saskatchewan. So part of that is being able to hang on to that wisdom and knowledge enough to be able to transfer it over, and then let the younger generation add to that to be the catalyst to carry it forward at a much faster pace. Would you not agree?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. We are an agency of about 20 to 22 employees. Now, that's relatively small, but we still do succession planning because it's very, very important. We identify key positions. We identify the people that are in those positions and find out what is the likelihood and the length of their duration of stay. Are they going to be there for a career? Are they likely to move on? Are they at the point of retirement? What is going to be the impact to STEP, and most importantly, to the services that they provide to our exporting members? And then what is our plan to replace that individual, whether it is internally or externally? And it's critical for our ongoing service and continuous improvement of services to our members. The other thing that we do that we think is very important is we have a very robust customer relations management system that captures a lot of the activities and a lot of the work and a lot of the information that we get from our members, that then serves as that handoff, that torch that you pass on to new employees as they come in, to ensure a continuity of that service as you go through your succession planning and replacement. We also have a very robust onboarding process and training, including not only internal training, but training to the export industry through a program called FIT, and I won't get into that specifically. But you take this young talent, you bring them in, you train them, get them up to speed, and turn them loose, so to speak, on the export industry and watch them do their magic.
Yes, yes. And I know in my space, these types of services and this type of education and communication are incredibly important, because where we see in our space challenges is that we've got, at the helm, you've got the wisdom and knowledge, you've got this robust young crew coming through, and to get the meeting of the minds, to be able to transfer the knowledge both ways, and to come to a common ground. Even in our small space of benefits, we find our challenges in that space because people have a way of thinking, and this is the way it's going to be. And they have to pay attention to what is coming into play, and they have to look at it much differently. So it's quite interesting. It's kind of no different than our parents or grandparents. They did things differently, and they would look at us. And if we had a house that had more than one extra bedroom, they would think that's too extravagant, right? Times are changing. And so we have to be better at communicating and working together as a team. And then that's when that synergy starts to begin. So I do have a question from Colton. Hi, Colton. Could you elaborate a bit more on the PreMarket membership opportunity for startups? Yep. Is it available for anyone, and how do they learn more about it?
Great question. Thank you, Colton. As I had mentioned, it's a new category of membership. STEP is a membership-based organization. We serve all exporters, but to get the full suite of programs and services, which is comprehensive, you have to become a member, and there's a membership fee. It's very nominal given the amount of service and the value of the service that you get from STEP as a result. But we were always dedicated to exporters. We would help exporters. If you've got a product and you're exporting, we're there to help. So we would provide market intelligence in new markets, or as I had mentioned previously, market intelligence on regulatory requirements or labeling requirements in market, translation services, in-market missions, outgoing services, warehouse fulfillment, all manner of services. But it was always just for exporters. But what we said, if we truly are up to and need to increase exports for Saskatchewan, we need to make new and assist new companies becoming new exporters and better exporters. That pipeline from business idea to commercialization to serving local markets to exporting. And so we needed to fit our information, our programs, our suites of services into that pipeline. And we said, let's help the PreMarket space make sure that they are ready for exports, that they have market entry strategies, that they understand the risks involved with international business, and that we're there to help solve that international business risk for them, or at least reduce it. So the PreMarket membership is a very small fee. It is an incubation type of a membership. So it's only good for 1 year, but you get market intelligence opportunities, you get incentives to travel and a reduction in fees to travel abroad to make sure that you get some experience in international marketing. And after a year, we would hope that you become a full-time exporter and would become a regular member. So it's available to any company that has a principal idea and a product that they're ready to produce or are producing. So early stage commercialization where you just have an idea, you wouldn't be necessarily eligible for that membership. But if you have a product and you're producing product and you're ready to make that first step into international stages, we're there for you.
That's something I didn't know. So this is fantastic. It's fantastic because I'm even thinking about, again, the event. I keep going back to yesterday, and Colton is the board member of SIPE. So he has many relationships with people that are in the space of going, how do I get to that next step? How do I start to grow? How do I push my product out? And what are the opportunities and the resources to do it? So thank you for sharing that. So we've got 2 minutes to go. If there are any questions, I would love it if you want to send them our way, and we will make sure Chris gets them. I do want to close by a couple of things. I do want to say thank you very much, Chris, for coming to join us today. I definitely learned a lot, and I know our audience did. I think this is an important organization that's out there. And I think the better we are at educating people what it is and what it can do for them, I think that just helps us all flourish. So thank you for being a guest and putting up with me. So
my absolute pleasure, Deb. And again, a quick shout out to you and Colton and Cliff, the entire Wiegers family, and the great staff at Wiegers Financial and Benefits for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to working with you in the future to create more exports and more opportunities for Saskatchewan business.
Always we're there, and we always want to help and learn and grow and help our clients and the community grow. So I agree 100%. So in closing, I want to say that we've got 2 sessions lined up, and I can't say at this point in order of, but there is 2 that are very important to us that we want to just throw out there. Next month, our session is December 16. It's the 3rd Thursday of each month, And we either or are going to have a conversation around HR, labor shortage. It's a really critical conversation right now with a lot of the space that I work in. So we will have Hanifa Mani joining us on that level, talking about labor shortage and what's happening out there and the opportunities going forward. The other one is I'm going to put myself in the interviewer's position, and we're going to talk about emerging issues as it relates to the benefits space and direct to the benefits space. I've had the opportunity to present and did a lot of research and learned a lot myself along the way and what we're dealing with every day in our space. And I thought it was important to share with my audience what we're seeing as we move forward into the 2022 and beyond years. So benefits definitely are swiftly changing. The landscape is more challenging than ever. And the good news is there's great opportunities. Now we just got to get together, learn, and talk about that. So those are the two coming up. Again, I want to say thank you very much, Chris, for being part of our audience and our session today. I want to say thank you to the audience for joining in, and do enjoy the rest of this day. The sun is shining, and I don't think there's any snow on the horizon, although the farmers probably would want it. Take care. Be safe.